When making coils, you want to start with a sphere. The sphere to begin with should be about the size of a ping pong ball. Once you have it into a sphere, you can turn it into a shape that's kind of like a Tootsie Roll. I'm just taking my hands and I'm rolling them against each other to get kind of this Tootsie Roll shape. From there you can set it on the table, and from fingertip to palm you can start to roll out this coil. By adding light pressure with your hand, you can start to roll out a coil shape. You want to stop once the coil shape is about the size of your pinky, or the circumference of your pinky. So they should be around the same size. That's about as small as I want to go. When you first start working with coils, I like to create a small pile of them to then work from. So I'm just going back and forth, fingertip to palm. I'm moving left to right, right to left down my coil. And I'm checking to make sure I'm not going any smaller than my pinky. Some common problems that people have when they're rolling out coils, I'm just getting it prepared, is maybe they're pushing too hard and they start to see fingerprints in their coil. One side starts to flatten. Some students will get kind of a square shape. If there's ever at a point where you do not have a circle shape happening with your coil, I always like to put it on its short side so it's sticking high up, and then just tap down on the coil. And that will help create a square that is a lot easier to roll out. Now with our coils, we're making crazy coil pots. So we want to make these coils into something a little bit more interesting. We're going with some alternative shapes. Some of those shapes could be spirals. So I'm just taking the coil and I'm turning it over on top of itself. I could finish the coil all the way down, or I could choose to take the coil on the other side and roll it to match, or we could have two coils that are opposite each other to make more of an S shape. If I made a whole row of these, or I made this really large on one side or smaller on the other, it could start to turn out pretty cool. Another shape you could do is a sphere, and when I make spheres, I like to rip off small pieces and then from there turn them into circles or spheres in my hand. With those spheres, you can score, slip, and attach them in between your coils. You could also make a long row of these if I kept taking off more pieces, and make a small row of dots. Another neat thing we can do with coils is turn them into a spiral. But because the spiral will be with two coils, we want to make them a little bit smaller than our pinky. So I'm going to roll this out a little bit smaller. Now I'm going to fold it in half so I can measure it, and then just break off the fold. Then these two coils I can twist together using the score, slip, and weld attachment first, and then tap it on one side to make a flattened coil. Now I also want it to be flattened on the top and the bottom, so I'm just going to lightly tap that top side as well. Now I have a coil that is much easier to work with, but it still has that spiral look. You can also do a braid. It's a little bit more challenging, but the steps go the same. You'd roll out the coil to be a little bit thinner than your pinky, and then you'd have 3 pieces. Then those 3 pieces you would take and you would braid together.